A standard structure on, this happens to be, it was an old dilapidated structure, very unsafe, and the lady had a couple of young kids. They could have fallen in or they could have hurt themselves. This is, it also saves us money because the old structures, concrete slabs that we've had no hatch in them. There's no manhole lid. So anytime we call Tim to go out there and flush out a culvert or a sewer for us, we had to mobilize the backhoe. So a whole construction crew to lift the concrete slab so he can flush it. Now he can go out there, open the lid, and get that done. It costs us money to replace them with this standard, but it looks good. It looks like somebody cares. In the foreground here, in the back here, you see, it's not very clear, but this is a patch of asphalt repair that the water company did. And I've asked, must have been Todd, he called it to my attention. I told him that we're holding people accountable when they work on our roads, meaning that they can't just do any old job and say, well, it's good enough for Stookey residents. Well, it isn't. So we called them back, and I have to give credit where credit is due. The fellow that I was dealing with, Mr. Millender, he went back and they did an excellent job on repairing the patch of asphalt there. The ugly stuff you see, that's from history. We didn't have the time to deal with it. Eventually we'll address everything, so we have to prioritize. This is on Bernard, and it's not the one that I think Mr. Green mentioned to me. It's a different, I thought you mentioned this to me. But a couple of ladies were walking on Bernard, and they noticed a top of a manhole was a little too low, and they called it to our attention. And it took us a little while to get to it. As I mentioned to you, our resources are limited, so we get to things, but it takes us a little while. We're always busy, but it takes us a while. So they went out there, it was like taming iron and rock for them to break the manhole cover out of the ground and raise it, but we did it. When we're not doing these specific jobs, and we have a ton of them, we will have a ton of them for the next 4 years, I guarantee you. Then we're doing standard operational procedure where we fix roads. And that's what we do when we don't have somebody calling us to report a problem that we have to deal with. This is a machine that fixes oil and chip road or certain patches on other roads. So you may see it in your neighborhood eventually. On the back of this here, you will see this is erosion control. A lot of country roads we have, some of them are in the city. I drive the township roads, I've driven them many times over already. The ditches along the roads, eventually they get eaten away that the road bed itself is compromised. And it costs a lot of money for us we have to shut the road down and deal with it in a different fashion. So this is out on Mueller Road by the bridge that we fixed. It has nothing to do with the bridge. It's a big gully that eventually the road would have fallen in. So we fixed it with filter fabric and these big boulders. And as these guys are, this is back-breaking work. And if I was, I'm an old man already, so if I was doing this this stuff, it would break my back by the end of the day. And that's despite of the fact I do lift 4 tons of iron every morning for exercise, but half an hour of this here, and any person would be done. So when they're not doing this, I'm not crazy about being a tyrant. So when they're working, after doing something like this, I'm fully conscious of giving them an easy assignment the next day that is just as valuable, and you have seen the results of that. And that's by painting stripes at the stop bars at the stop signs, which is very helpful for what I hear from residents. This is a culvert we replaced on 74th Street. This here is not Rudolph, don't worry about it, but we do get a lot of calls about animals that we need to pick up. This one is in his resting place at the rendering plant. This is Newman. There's a flooding problem there. Started out with a little bit of a problem we were called on, and I decided I'm going to look into see if we can round up funds and public support to be able to solve everybody's problems down there, not one little problem. we started stocking up for salt. We had trucks coming in for a whole day, and we had the backhoe shoving this salt in the salt dome. We put the boxes and the salt spreaders on the trucks in preparation for the season. And this fellow here, his name is Todd Horn. And I've got to tell you, I've learned from him how to be a good citizen and a good volunteer. This lady here had a problem with brush and bushes and what have you. It is not my jurisdiction. So what I told her is, I know a good person who volunteers his time to help people. And I called Todd. And I made myself available for him to be his helper on a Saturday, and we took care of it. So thank you very much, Todd.
Thank you, Tom.
And I have to tell you, in October sometime, it was October 10th, and I got a call from the guys at the end of the day. They had spent some time doing something that's not road district jurisdiction. And that was, they got a call on their radios, they overheard on the radios, a call in distress. A gentleman that lives on Dunn Road here, we had done some work in his neighborhood. And he was having apparently a heart problem. And so they took a detour, and being trained EMTs, they realized, they knew by expectation, and they realized that saving a person's life is more important than fixing a pothole. So they did what they needed to do, and Mr. Harmon probably had a few more minutes to say goodbye to his family because he passed on. But they called me because they didn't want me to get in trouble, that they were doing something they shouldn't have been doing. And I told them that would be something that worthy getting in trouble with. I think that's what you folks would want us to do. So this is, it's not a picture of our Christmas tree at the district, but this is very similar to it. We picked it up from the roadside, and we're going to decorate it, and that's going to be our Christmas tree at the shop. And being Christmas season, I don't wish you shiny cars or big presents, but I wish you all, each one of you, without any exception, a peaceful holiday and the simple joys of life. Merry Christmas to you all. Mr. Green, one thing for the minutes, please, and that is the bill for the accountant. The road district's position is it's 3 years versus 1 year. My position is for the road district, renew it for 1 year. That is the point that needs to get into the minutes.
Bill for what now, Sal?
Let me rephrase this here.
Sal, I think the board is going to go with 1 year. We've always in the past. So.
Okay, very good. I appreciate that.
Sal,
Yes.
the lady that you talked to on Bernard Drive, how deep was the manhole lid?
How deep? The top of the manhole from the top of the pavement, you mean? It was several inches.
Well, I was going through our book, handbook, and I think and I noticed it on the fellow, but I'd have you talk with Tim. The manholes are supposed to be 4 inches below the top of the ground. That's what I read. So I would check. Villa Drive was completely filled up, the manholes, and they weren't dug out, had to re-dug out. You re-rocked part of Villa Drive. I don't know if you covered any manholes or not, but they did have to dig them out when Willis was road commissioner. And the second thing I got to ask you, on Villa Drive, just before the pump station, where you put the nice pole to keep people from running in the creek, it's washing around the creek, the warning sign. It's going into the road again.
Well, it wasn't. I didn't put the pole up, but I will look at it. It was done before my
You
term.
put the warning sign?
I didn't do it. No.
Well, it's starting to wash around. The driveway, right at the creek, the people got a driveway going up to the house. And the people coming from out of the road, they could just go right in front of that tree and go down the creek.
Yeah. No,
But I would check if the manhole.
With respect to the manholes, the accepted tolerance for paved areas is 1/100th of a foot. The accepted tolerance in grass area about 1/10, so about this much. So 4 inches, I don't know where that comes from.
But I understand that it's 4 inches.
Is that in time?
Really?
Okay, let's move
Please,
on.
can I answer this question?
No, we can do it.
Yeah, I want to answer, this is important.
All right, Tom.
You said these girls don't pay for their insurance. Well, I checked it all out. These girls have never asked for a raise, have never gotten a raise, going on 7 years. They have not, so I think they
They're making
consider
plenty
they
of
paid
money
for
as
their
it is,
insurance in
Tom.
no way. They
They're making-
don't even ask.
You know,
for
I
a
mean,
raise.
the
Okay, let's
average.
move on, let's move on. All right, the next thing
Don't answer the
up
question.
is the tax levies for the town and the road. The first one would be the road district levy. I'd make a motion that we approve the road district's levy in the amount of $483,335.
Or a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Hooper,
Aye.
Holmes,
Aye.
Stookey,
Aye.
Porter,
Aye.
Bagley.
The next one is the tax levy ordinance for the town